James and Aaron, welcome to The Mentor.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, we're going to talk about your business a little bit later. Business being called Pinot and Picasso, which is pretty cute. And we'll talk about the name. We'll talk about what it means. I'm dying to know why you chose Pinot as opposed to Chardonnay, but I guess it's going to be something to do with the name. But let's just go back a little bit. Where are you two boys from?
We're from Penrith.
Penrith boys?
Western Sydney, New South Wales.
Right. So you born and bred there? Grew up there?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. You look like James. We had a footballer, Roosters, who looked very much similar to you. I mean, every team's got to have one redhead in the side. Like
token maniac.
You got to have a red. You got to have a redhead. Totally.
Nut.
You must. I mean, I remember Ricky Stewart used to always say that you got to have a red nut in the side, otherwise your side's not complete. And but you look like the guy we had in our side for many years. Very similar. Do you guys play footy or what's your deal?
So actually, we played footy at school together, rugby union. We went to just a little private school in Penrith, and it was very, very like basic type rugby union. And James, I played a lot of football, rugby league outside of that, but I'll always say James is the most powerful ball runner I've ever seen. So he could have been anything if he probably in rugby union. He applied himself a little bit harder. But
if I had, I think it was a fitness game for me back in the day. I was too concerned with cheeseburgers than getting some kilometres in the legs.
Yeah, you didn't like to run.
No, not at all, mate.
Yeah. But he could run. But he could run, could he, Aaron?
When he got going and came off the back fence, it was pretty to watch.
Yeah. Were you in the same school, same year?
Correct.
Yeah. Like were you mates at school?
Yeah. And as we went a little bit further down high school, we definitely became a lot closer. And then once we went to university, we didn't go to the same university, but yeah, definitely stayed in touch, and it only got a little bit stronger as you started to go out a little bit more and really, know who you want to be with as friends. And yeah, it's been awesome since.
Yeah, it's already cool that there's a stereotype that people from outer west. I mean, I'm from sort of these days called inner west, I guess, but then it was outer west when I went there, lived there. But today, outer west like Penrith, there's a stereotype that you either become tradies or no good or whatever, gangsters. There's a whole lot of stereotypes, but there is also a cohort of people who try hard at school and end up at uni. Not to say that that's the be all and end all, but nonetheless, you represent a cohort of people who are slightly different to what would be typically considered to be the stereotype of Penrith. You didn't end up playing for the Panthers or anybody else that matter. What was the influence on you two guys individually? Maybe start with you, Aaron. What was the influence on you to go to university?
I think the system that we came through, both my parents were migrants from into Australia in the early 80s. Mum's South African, my dad's Chilean. They worked really, really hard to put us through a really good school.
What the fuck? South African and Chilean?
Yes.
So how did that
So they both migrated to Cabramatta in the golden 80s period to move to Australia, and they were neighbours, and I guess the rest is history. And they then set up a little bit further out west in Glenmore Park, which was a really fledgling suburb at the time, and they worked really, really hard to put us through a good education. So it was always kind of in line to, you go to uni and become a professional. I went to uni to do podiatry, and then I suppose 4 years down the track, in my last semester, actually, I actually thought, I actually hate this. I hate this more than anything. And I just saw, I guess, what a lucky country Australia is at the same time. I know no different, but you just see how many people make a go of the Australian opportunities. So I thought, you know what, if we don't have a go, I can now start to see why the term midlife crisis comes about, where people almost have a go when there's children and mortgages and cars and all those type of things, and you have to make it work from the very, very start. So we kind of looked at each other and said, you know what, we've got nothing to lose at this point. And yeah, that's how I guess this business started, but I guess the deeper inspiration as to, I guess, having a crack really formed.
So you chucked podiatry in. I mean, I guess anyone would if they saw my feet. My God, podiatry is footwork.
Correct, yeah.
I mean, that's a bit out there. Why did you choose?
I worked for Rebel Sport at the time, and I was really interested in footwear. And again, it was a really stable job. You were coming out on some pretty good coin and a decent lifestyle. And I think the turning point was when you had to go to pracs outside of uni. I would, on that Sunday before a prac would start, I'd be thinking, what can I run into, or what kind of food poisoning could I start to think about getting, and the amount of concussions that I didn't have to try and get out of these pracks made me think, you know what, if I can't do a week sitting here, how am I meant to do
a lifetime?
A lifetime, yeah.
Totally. What about you, James? It's what did you study at university too?
Yeah, I did very similar storyline. Mum and Dad never did university. They just kind of worked their way up through the banks, or Dad worked for himself. So Mum and Dad were always pushing us to do really well, and the mantra was, you do well when we ever asked for something growing up, you do well in school, you go to uni, get yourself a good job, and then you could buy it yourself. Was the mantra that Mum and Dad had, and I ended up landing in criminology with a view to join the AFP or the New South Wales Police. And same thing as Aaron, we got to a certain point, it's like, I don't think I can commit to this lifestyle and this anymore, and wanted to do something that suited the people that we wanted to be as well. And I think that's where we came together. There was always something bigger and better out there, and we're seeing a lot of our friends out west as well have a crack and do something for themselves, and we really wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah, plumbers making a fucking fortune, and you're sitting there at university thinking, man, my God, why don't I go and do plumbing or building or carpentry or bricklaying or electrician or something?
Absolutely.
All your mates killing it.
Yeah, exactly right.
Especially out west. But I'm always intrigued, like how two guys either at the end of their degree or some way through their degree sort of sit down and say, what the fuck? Like, what's the moment? I mean, you're having a beer or were you sort of winding each other up over a period of months? How did you do that? I mean, what happened?
I think it was just one of those things that was niggling away, and it sounds really ungrateful, but you go to university and you get a lot of free time. You think you're busy, but you've got more totally. Free time than you can shake a stick at. And we just started with the idea. We talked about opening a cafe or a live music venue or something like that. And it just the conversation.
But over a beer, because you went to different universities.
Yeah.
So you met?
It was just various periods of free time that we were probably
texting.
Playing. FIFA or whatever.
Probably a lot of beers.
Yeah, all the above.
Yeah, fuck this. I want to get out of this. What can we do? It's killing me.
Yeah, it was that. It was that. It's this isn't for us. And like Aaron said, I don't think we saw ourselves working in someone else's business, and definitely not from my perspective going into a government position. And I just couldn't see myself doing that. And that fueled these conversations that we had, and we had them regularly until we got to a point that let's do something about it.
I worked in professional environments, and in the end, I mean, I couldn't work for anyone either, but I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. I didn't have a mate. I mean, I just sort of did it because I sort of rebelled against the whole idea, to be frank with you. But would you have done it on your own?
Yeah, I think there would have been a point that I would have taken that leap, but I think it wouldn't have happened as quickly as it did. And I think Aaron's right. A lot of people wait till their late 30s, 40s to go and do something for themselves, and it just sped the whole process up. You know what mates are when we get around each other, and boys doing what boys do, and you feed each other and you egg each other on a little bit, and that sped up the flywheel, and it started turning more creative ideas, and then realizing more and more that that's exactly what we wanted to do.
Is it courage that comes first, or is it the sense of adventure, or is it the resentment that you have for what you're doing comes first? What comes
I think
first?
It's a combination between a number of those things. For me particularly, I was literally on the cusp of finishing a health degree in essence, in which I had to say I don't want to do this in the slightest, and almost regress to be back at, I guess, starting again. But I took a lot of solace in the way that Australia is such a amazing country, in the way that the disparity between just industries, you can make money, I guess, doing anything. You want to pick up a shovel for a week, you're still going to make a decent wage. So it took a lot of, real peace in the way that if it all goes pear-shaped, I was leaving with, half a degree. I could go back to uni for 2 years, become a school teacher if I really wanted. It wasn't, and we were, really young at the time as well. So all those things compounded to just make that decision that, the uni wasn't going to be the final point.
And why did you decide to get into this business?
So those who know me and Aaron know that we are by far the least artistic people in our head office.
I saw that struck me, by the way.
Yeah. I don't know what gave it away.
No, but I was hoping you're going to really surprise the shit out of me and say, fuck me, like, we're fantastic artists or something.
Fine artists.
No, we you know what? We haven't even tried. I'm sure if we put our mind to it, we could get there.
You didn't attend like these joints where you go and paint people in the nude? Like you weren't painting Aaron in the nude or something? Like any
Not that everyone else knows about.
Or not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so you just, okay, well, what inspired you to have up front drinking and art?
That combination is really, really fun. I think as Australians, if we can do anything while drinking, it becomes automatically more attractive. You think barefoot bowls, footy, anything like that.
Yeah, FIFA,
FIFA,
games.
exactly right. It does make it more enticing for someone. So we saw this as an opportunity to deliver something to our hometown that you have to come in the city to do. And
okay, so right, already this sort of thing already existed in town, in the Greater Sydney area.
Yeah, there was something a little bit more stiff and a little bit more regimented, and something that wasn't as entertainment based as what we thought we could offer.
You had experienced something.
Yeah, the story goes is my fiance and her best friend went to a similar concept in the city, and they came home, and James was actually I was at the pub. James was in Vietnam, finding himself after a bit of a breakup. And they
How'd you go? Yeah, right.
You found yourself?
I found something.
Still looking. And so they picked me up from the pub, and they were talking about how proud they were about constructing something, which was an artwork. There was 2 artworks in the back, and I said, you know what, this is pretty cool. I really liked their energy post that. They weren't blind drunk or anything like that. They'd had a couple of drinks, but they had a really, nice experience. But they found that, there was gaps in X, Y, Z. So that night I actually text James in Vietnam, and I said, look, I think, mate, this might be the one. And that actual conversation chain that we had on Facebook Messenger actually runs up the walls now of our head office. So it kind of just illustrates how, I guess, out of the blue it came. And 6 weeks after that, we opened our first studio in Penrith. So it really did happen relatively quickly.
What were you thinking when he sent that to you?
I had to do my own market research at my hostel, and I think I asked about 3 or 4 different girls that were staying in the same building what they thought of the idea, and they gave it the thumbs up. So
really?
That was good proof of concept on our end. But I think I really, really loved the idea that it was something different and something left of field and something that hadn't been done in our area before. And that really built the platform for the franchising business and for us to deliver something super, super important to a community that we could really cared about.
Yeah, because I want to get back to that, because that's important. You wanted to bring to your community, that's Penrith community, maybe you wanted just that currently exists in the city that the 2 girls had to travel to the city to do, which is a fucking hassle, and they've got to get back.
I think that's a really important point. Proof of concept, again, even further, was that they were both from Penrith, and they went to the city. And anyone from the west from Parramatta further or anywhere really, it's a hassle to get in the city.
Normally, where do they normally go? Just in the local area.
Yeah. So
because you can't get home and shit like that.
It's hard. Parking is even a hard thing. You're in a Wilson car park.
You can't drink, and so it's expensive. And
That's right. So all those things we thought, what, if they're prepared to do that in Sydney, they'd be very well equipped to do it in their own home.
What's like an Uber cost to get from, say, Penrith to the city?
Depends on the time of night. Sometimes it's generally about $150. Can go up to about $200.
One way.
Yeah, most people just, if they're going to do something like that, they'll just get a hotel out here. It's pretty much comparable, and you get a bed, a relatively nice bed to sleep on. So it is a hassle.
Yeah, totally. And that's probably not something that most people really consider. So, and then on top of that, you got the cost of doing the deal and
dinner and drinks after.
Yeah, mate, and that's a fucking nightmare, and it's an hour or so traveling there, an hour or so traveling back. Yeah, that totally makes sense to me. And can I ask, do people in your local community, and I just want you to define that in a moment, do they actually resent having to go into the city?
It's probably one of two. It depends on the occasion.
Yeah.
They say that, we get to do a whole experience, and I think that's when having somewhere to stay in the city, it makes it like an end-to-end experience.
Yeah.
When you're going in there to do something that you don't want to do, whether it's get a car service or whatever you need to do in the city, and then going in, then coming out it's
a bit of a necessary evil.
It is.
Right, but they try to turn it into an experience they say, well, it's a shit thing we're going to have to do to go out and do this event. But I'm going to try and turn an experience by actually booking a hotel room, stay in the city, so I can wake up in the morning, have a nice breakfast, and I can have eggs Benedict or whatever. Did you think to yourselves that my community, that's you thinking, Penrith or people in the outer west, if that's how it's properly defined, because that's the thing. I'm mates with a guy called Ty Tuivasa, who's a UFC fighter.
Yeah, we know Ty.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, and Mark Hunt, ex-UFC fighter. It's a thing, for Penrith and all the area. There's a thing that exists for those people.
Absolutely.
I mean, people over this side don't understand it. They don't get it. There's a thing at Cabramatta too, for that matter, and Campbelltown. I mean, in Fairfield, there's, if you're maybe of Asian descent, you live in that area, there's great food. They tend to hang in their area because they know the good, cool places to go to. People in the inner west or the city got no fucking idea. Wouldn't have a clue about it. Just don't. It's like a different world.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so you must have been pretty much in touch with this thing that exists.
Yeah, absolutely. I touched on the Ivan Cleary straight talk that you had with him, and you were talking about a little. I suppose you don't want to call it inferiority complex, but it's kind of in pursuit of something better for your area.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a chip on the shoulder. Really.
Yeah,
It's like whether we put it there or someone else put it there is a chip on the West shoulder. In some way, shape, or form. But
what I'm sort of seeing too, though, is it's also they accept where they live is pretty fucking good.
Yep.
I don't need to go in the city. I mean, sure, we got west suburbs people, and I grew up that way too. We got something to prove.
Yep.
But outside of that, you actually can be pretty proud of where you live and think it was fucking good here. Penrith is a good joint. There's expensive houses out there. Yeah. There's a great football. You got the grand final winners out there. You pretty much got whatever you want out there.
Yeah.
You don't need to come to the city.
No, and I think you go out to Penrith now, there is and this is what Aaron was alluding to, that there is a vibe of the area now, and it's buzzing, and people can feel the progress that the area is making. And we referenced to the guys before, the amount of good things to come out of Penrith this year. Grand final winners, Jess Fox won gold, Paddy Cummins test captain. There's all these really cool national scale
Penrith
things.
Get a new stadium.
Yeah, we're getting a new stadium.
I mean, that in itself, by the way, is a reflection that the government's actually agreeing with you.
Yes, for
They're
sure.
saying we need to spend some money out there because that's a thriving community that's going to vote for us or not vote for us. So let's kick some money in.
Absolutely. We're a member of a business group, and we've got mates who are all striving to improve Penrith, whether it's through restaurants or cafes, or we opened a Mexican restaurant last year to add to the area, and where we run a food and wine festival every single year because
you too.
Yeah. And this sits as a part of that greater Penrith piece, that we're doing things to contribute to the area that we're normally having to travel an hour each way to get. And the people of Penrith are so appreciative of things like that, and really do support people who just do have a crack like we have been.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I was just thinking about, you've got some great people come out of the area. Not just because they're famous, like MG and Brandy Alexander.
Yep.
I'm obviously rugby league people, and even Phil Gould at one stage there was a Penrith coach. 1.5 2 million people live out that direction. I mean, if Greater Sydney's got more in excess of 5 million people, the far west must have at least 25% of that population. Yeah. So just in terms of population and where population growth is going to be greatest, and you'd have to say that that's a prime area. Did you do the math around all this? Did you think this through mathematically?
Probably not as analytical as that at that point. We were a little bit younger, and we were just seeing, these housing estates just popping up, and people flocking to the areas, and apartments going up. So without kind of diving really deep into the numbers, I guess with our eyes, we were kind of making some assumptions going,
instinctively.
This is booming. This is really on the up.
You got the vibe though.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How many years ago are we talking about, by the way?
3.5.
3.5. We started.
It's not that long ago.
No.
So it's just sort of pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Like a year or two pre-COVID. So you were getting the vibe about the thing, and then you got excited about the concept or the experience.
Yes.
And then you said, I'm going to take this back independent. That's your first one?
Yep. That was
your first
yep.
branch, franchise, or is it a corporate-owned one?
No, there was no hint of franchising, multiplying, anything like that. It was
You're just going to have one.
Just, again, it kind of goes back to what we're talking about. We looked at each other and said, you know what, this might cost us $30,000 start to finish for the year. Let's do it. And we've always said we had no idea, and we thought, you know what, what's the harm in trying? But if it doesn't, make it past its first year, it's been worthwhile still, irrespective.
We put in $4,000 each, and we borrowed maybe $5,000 from my parents to get going. And that was, in terms of a mitigated risk, like nearly $15,000, throw it in and have a roll of dice and see how it goes. And that was our mentality. And it's obviously a bit larger scale now with how we do things, but we're always willing to try new things.
So the first one took how long to get up off the ground, and what was the concept like?
Yeah, so it was 6 weeks from that, like I said, that first text exchange to our first doors opening. Funnily enough, my fiance and her friend ran the very first one, and she's actually our head of franchising now. So it's kind of gone very, very full circle, and she's amazing at her job. But she ran the first one. She's staff member number one. And I think the big difference, Mark, is that we built this for us to never work in it. So the experience of the customer was paramount, and what we were looking for in a person to actually execute our service was paramount as well. We always say they're not artists, they're hosts. They're there to facilitate a good time. With that being said, we believe, I guess, the product that we aim to deliver is a lot of fun. And as long as we let adults kind of be and give them some direction, they're going to have a good time quite easily as well at the same time. So yeah, that was the foundations of the first one. And we were so lucky in our local area that we had so many good people kind of get around us to start with. And that really catapulted us really nicely into a level of comfort, a level of being able to pay back the loan to James's parents relatively fast. And 6 months after, we were kind of looking at each other saying, I reckon we could do this again. And that kind of turned 2019. And from there we went to Byron Bay. And then, yeah, we just opened number 68 last weekend. So
tell me what the experience is though.
Articulating what the experience is has always been the hardest thing for us. And we've had
verbalizing
is
we'll have a crack though.
Yeah. So we've literally been asked this question at least 250 times, and we still struggle to. But
that's what you're refining it.
We are refining. We're getting there. But in essence, it's a 3-hour art instructional with a boozy twist. So simpling it down, you grab your friends, you grab your favorite bottle of wine or tequila, or
you bring it yourself.
Yeah, whatever you like, and you come in and you get guided through the artwork of the night or the session by one of our hosts. So really, really simple. We've got great playlists which are curated to support those evenings. We've got, the staffing is a really big part of it because, the artistic ability sits, secondary to the hosting and the customer service that we look for in these guys. And then people leave with a 16 by 18 inch canvas that they've painted, and people hang it on the walls or they chuck it in the bin or whatever they do. But they've created something in that 3 hours that they can go back and reflect on and share with their friends and family as well.
That's cool. We're going to go to a break. I want to come back. I actually want you to take me through what I would experience if I walked into one of these one evening for 3 hours with one of the production team. I might bring Simon with me, and what we're going to experience. How's it all work? So, but we'll go to the break and we'll come straight back.
Perfect.
So I'm back here with James and Aaron, and we're talking about Pinot and Picasso. I just parked the name in a moment, but I just want you guys to take me through what happens. Like if I went there, I was saying earlier with Simon, he one of our production crew, and he and I rocked up. Do we join another group of 20 people, or we just have a little one for ourselves? Or how does it all work?
Yeah, so our studios are built anywhere between 20 to 30 seat classes.
Yep.
And so if you guys walked through the doors, you'd be greeted by a very pleasant host who would have an iPad that has your names on there, and they'd say, come on through to your seat. You'd be seated. If you have alcohol that you brought with you, you'd be given glassware. If you brought any nibbles, you'd be either shown a fridge to store them in, or a place in which you can eat them, or a stowaway table. That when the session starts, you kind of get welcomed into the night, a little bit of housekeeping. Then they kind of point you through the artwork that you've either selected or you might have not known what you were going to do. And they kind of just give a very brief outline as to how it's going to work. Our artworks work in 3 predominant steps because we don't want to be talking at you guys all night. So after that, you go and collect your paints and aprons, and then you get started and you systematically work through the artwork for the night.
But how do I know what to paint? Sorry, Aaron, how do I know? I mean, like, do you say, well, do I choose I'm going to paint a landscape or a
so it's all on our website. So if Simon booked you prior, he would have known, or someone would have known that that was on offer for the night. We always say you can kind of do whatever you want as well at the same time. We've got a lot of displays if you want to do that. If you're a good artist and you want to.
What if it's fucking crap? Like, I don't know what I'm doing.
It's completely a judgment-free zone, and you've got 3 hours to kind of do what you want. We always think it's really cool that adults are able to be brought into the present because it's probably the first time they're touching either a paintbrush or working with color without painting their houses, where they actually can just, stop and think. And sometimes we think, it's so quiet in here. And people say, thank you for that. That was one of the most incredible nights of my life.
So not all laughing and giggling and shit like that.
No, I think people, especially when you're a group, the inner competitive demon comes out, and you're looking at what your mates cooking up over there, and you're like, I'm going to beat this person.
Oh, really?
I'm going to do it. Absolutely. People are so competitive. But I think the nice thing is that people do get lost in that experience, and over days with mobile phones and everything is at your fingertips. You very rarely have a period of time where you're with your friends where you put everything away completely and you engage in doing something constructive and creative together.
Creative, especially.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's sort of meditative in some respects. Isn't it?
Yeah, I think the further we go down this rabbit hole of Pinot and Picasso, we're looking into partnering with the NDIS and making this a subsidised part of that scheme, because we do see the health benefits in I guess further the fine motor stuff and the creative expression and that meditative stuff as well is really, really good for people, and I think people actually feel refreshed.
Well, PTSD sufferers and
yeah, absolutely.
I can sort of see that being very calming.
Yeah,
without the wine, add the wine. That's for
it's another layer of calming,
another layer or excitement. But and so I walk in. I only have to bring what I want to drink and maybe what me and Simon and whoever else come with wants to eat. We don't have to bring anything else, just normal, whatever we wear.
Yep.
It doesn't matter.
Yep.
We can join in another group. There could be another. How big are the classes? Like, what's the limit?
Probably up to 30 is pretty
30,
comfortable for one host. And you kind of just are on these big tables like when you're in primary school with an easel set up, and you kind of just rip in, and it's a good opportunity to chat to your neighbour and
get to know someone.
Get to know someone new. And
we find little communities sometimes build where they're all kind of walking around the sessions and talking to each other and saying how wonderful and everything like that, which again adds to the experience that people are there are quite happy and collaborative, really.
They do start to use it as a pickup.
It's a great date night.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful date.
Yeah, it's sort of like speed dating type of thing, but you actually don't have to. Not putting under any pressure. You can sort of be looking at the chick over there, sort of looking from the side, see if you're getting a response. If you're not, just keep painting away as if it's just nothing going on.
Yeah, have
a few tequilas and get a bit of Dutch.
Yeah, absolutely. we had a good mate of ours, Will, who brought a date before his current girlfriend in, and he had his arm in a sling, and she was there nursing him as he was painting away, and he was living the absolute dream. He loved everything.
Did you take the arm out of the sling later on?
So he did, yeah. Chucked in the bin on the way out.
Yeah. That worked.
Yeah.
So that's pretty clever. And so I sort of get the whole idea. I mean, and I guess you were talking before, James, about how difficult it is to articulate the experience, because maybe it's a different experience for lots of different people. There's probably no one experience.
Yeah.
It might be, I don't know, 20, 30 different experiences that you can sort of, you could get other people to articulate for you. Maybe that's probably the reason.
For sure. And I think a lot of people get different things out of it as well. So finding a message that resonates with everyone's always a bit of a task. But we kind of diversify what we do to suit those people, and kids parties and, like specialist events like paint you in a drag queen or pay your pooch, and crazy people go over their dogs in this day and age. The opportunity to paint their dog is is the greatest thing since sliced bread. So that's really, really cool as well.
And what do you two guys do in relation to it? Like, because you're obviously not hosting it.
No.
You choose the host.
No. So this is a little bit of a different model in the way that we have always made it that the franchisee doesn't necessarily work when, I guess, the lights are on and the show at showtime.
Yep.
We always say our work's done at the front of the week, and the actual production itself, which is arguably the easiest part of the week, is done from Thursday or Friday afternoon onwards.
So it's not available every night of the week. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or something like that.
Yeah.
There's probably a day session, matinee session, and an evening session.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and when you say our work, you mean the work of who's
head office.
Yeah, head office.
Head office, we employ around 20 people in head office. Head office is in Penrith as well. And we've got 3 key directives. It's to empower our franchisees to be better business owners. It is also to continue to evolve the Pinot and Picasso experience.
Evolve,
yeah.
Yeah. Develop it. Yep.
Yeah, continue to develop and really maintain the brand as a whole and grow the brand.
So I sign up as a franchisee. How's it all work?
Pretty easy, really. You jump online, you check out all our franchise information, you submit an inquiry, and you get chucked into our sales funnel. The sales team will ring you and first round vet you. And if you're an appropriate franchisee, we get you to fill out another application, and you get the opportunity to sit down with me or Aaron, depending on what our schedules are like, and really explore the brand a little bit further and hear our origin story and meet us and get comfortable with who we are as well before progressing.
So you got 68 franchisees. Do you own any at the moment, or do you have a showcase one?
Yeah, the company as a whole owns about 20% of all of those.
Right.
And we believe, especially in new markets, we went to new states before we started franchising in them. Proof of concept and I guess being able to do it yourselves for franchisees was really important for us. So we set up landmark ones in every state, which we could send people to and also show that people were going to them as well.
So they could physically go and experience it too, I guess, too. So, and the franchise, do you charge a franchise fee, or is it a royalty-based deal?
It's a two-prong. We do both.
Yeah.
It's $50,000 plus GST franchise fee, and then they pay 12% recurring royalty every single week off their revenue.
Right. And what do they get from you? So you give them obviously all the literature, and you give them the operating manual and all that sort of stuff. Do you market for them and et cetera? Is that part of the deal, or do they have to market in their own local area?
Yeah, it's funny. When we were starting this, there was big hoo-ha around marketing funds and big franchise companies being audited, and there's been gaps in that kind of paper trail. So we thought, being a business that was born from a community, that each of our franchisees would build a community around their own business. So for the majority of it, they look after their own local area marketing. We've got a marketing team, like a digital marketing team, who can implement all their advertising across socials or Google and all these kind of avenues. Experience.
Finding audiences.
Absolutely. Finding new people and leveraging these other huge established businesses' followings and their customers to grow their own brand within their territory.
Do some of your franchisees have DJs?
Yeah, absolutely. For those bigger ticket events, like that next layer of entertainment is so important to engaging customers and adding more value beyond the studio. That's something that these guys do when they kind of work out in their own territories. But for our bigger brand partnerships, that's definitely a part of it. It's just, how do we add experience at every single step? Yeah,
it's interesting. I was talking to someone the other day about what could we do to sort of corporate events. And I thought of what's that sort of room thing they got there? What do they call that thing where you go and you have to escape room, whatever it is. And that seems to be one of the go-to things, or in the city anyway. Macquarie Bank and everyone's using those sort of things. We have at Yellowbrick Road, but I think Pinot and Picasso would be a good one. Just to offer that to people. Would you want to my staff in the city? Do you want to try that out? But I haven't seen any marketing come to me on it. Why? I mean, maybe I'm not your audience, but I haven't seen it come through on any of the platforms to me.
Yeah.
How do you guys get to say someone like me, or am I just too old or whatever? Am I not properly profiled?
You're probably not the right profile. We build our audience out of 25 to 55 year old
So you
women.
get to my staff.
We will get to your staff.
Yeah. So like you got to the guys here, the production crew.
And it kind of has worked when they show us that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we're just 100% hit rate, 2 out of 2. Both have been to one. That's not bad. And so can you tell me now about your profiling? So, like I always find it like extremely interesting how you profile who you want to market to.
It's funny. I think this generation is happy to be delivered things that
20 to 30.
20, up to 40.
Up to 40.
Yeah.
Especially on social media, you're hit with things that are relevant to you. We're not marketing, women's perfume to Simon over here.
He doesn't mind a bit of women's perfume.
I mean, what he does in his spare time is Simon's prerogative.
He did smell nice.
But what we're doing is we're hitting the broader demographic of 25 to 55-year-old women. That's who we've decided loves Pinot and Picasso through all our advertising and all the money that we spent. And then we can profile what a person in that will look like. So we create avatars on segments of that market and then hyper target more specific creative concepts to that.
Yeah, like through sponsored ads and
through
Facebook
and Google ads,
You do spend a lot of time doing analytics around this. Is this the stuff that you two guys, apart from interviewing franchisees, is this the stuff that you two guys sort of sit over the top of?
Yeah, I think for me and Aaron split our roles pretty clearly through the business. Aaron is operations and finance and kind of the nitty gritty stuff, and I'm more the growth and the marketing, and now data is becoming a big part of what we're doing. Looking at who's pioneering that space in Australia, especially like people like The Iconic are doing really, really great things with personalizing customer journeys and using data to give more custom ads or
relevant
products
stuff.
Or relevant stuff to the customers. And that's what we're moving into this year. So we're pulling all the data from our sales and, managing where people are coming from and what artworks are doing well in what sort of a community. So we've got city, suburban and regional, and then starting to segment the market even further to serve them more relevant things. It's a really big part of our business moving forward and making data-driven decisions as opposed to those
instincts,
warm things.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's sort of quite fascinating. Every business has got to have someone who cuts and someone who sews. It looks like you're doing the cutting and Aaron's doing the sewing because he's got to make it happen.
Absolutely, yeah.
And his team has to make it happen, and that's what operations all about.
Yeah.
But someone's got out there and cut the suit too, or cut the cloth, and that's what you're doing. And what you're saying now, it's your business is becoming as much an experiential thing relative to the customer as it is becoming a data business, knowing about what experiences a customer is expecting in a particular segment or across the board.
Correct. It's reading these patterns and trying to get ahead of them to deliver those innovations to people and keep them coming back to our studios. So
you employ data scientists or anything like that at this stage?
Yeah, we employ a team in India and a team in Russia who do a lot of our analytics stuff. So we use a program called Power BI, which pretty much pulls together all our data sources and translates it into something that franchisees can use to optimize their business.
Right.
So you think, 68 franchises, data from our website, from WooCommerce, which is the e-commerce platform that plugs into our website, Facebook, all these things get pulled in, and then we're now working on ways to manipulate that data to help franchisees make better decisions and make us better decisions as well.
Because I'm finding it's much more stuff I'm getting is much more relevant and interesting to me than I ever got in the past.
Yeah,
mainly because the algorithms are getting better and becoming sharper about what I want.
For sure, I think the landscape has changed, and I think we must also preface that we sit in a weird space, right? We're an e-commerce platform that delivers the product in a bricks and mortar studio. So we play this middle between e-commerce and hunting down customers and then getting the ability to show it off.
And there's an added layer of we want them to actively be part of their community as well.
Yeah.
So it's to
share it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that people are, especially even our age group, maybe we're just getting on now, but becoming a little less naive to advertising and people understanding, what companies are doing to try and spur on those sales. And I think, you look at the classic music festival or gig or concert where they're like, there's 100 tickets left, you've got to go. And people go, oh shit, I'm going to miss out. I think people are like, nah,
fuck that.
Fuck that. We know you.
That's not capacity.
Totally.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's old school.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Dude, went out with button-up boots.
Yeah. And I think that's making it a little bit more difficult for us because we are that entertainment space and people are maybe, in a post-COVID world, a little bit more laissez-faire about booking things in.
Yeah.
Because nothing has been promised for the last 4 months, Lockdowns be lifted and you're like, oh, they didn't, we'll just kind of roll with it. People are kind of rolling with the punches. So it's a really interesting space for us to roll in at the moment.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Where are you going to go to from here?
Yeah, exciting times for Pinot. We're really looking to consolidate ourselves in Australia and New Zealand. So we managed this year to open 4 studios in New Zealand without actually seeing these things or opening them up. So we've managed to navigate that, and I think it is getting our franchisees to be the best business owners they can in the current cohort, and then looking internationally to see where else the Pinot and Picasso could work.
Well, I love the name Pinot and Picasso. As you said earlier before we were on air, Aaron, you really went for the alliteration, to the double P's, but also Pinot Picasso. It sounds like that's Picasso's first name for some reason. Like, all of a sudden I'm like, hey, shit, is that his first name? Okay. But it works really well. It's a very, very clever name, Pinot, but it also tells you the story straight up.
Absolutely. And that conversation piece that we had, it was found there and then as well, where we kind of bounced 3 or 4 little things off it. And then it was Picasso and Pinot. And we're like, oh, hold on, let's just flip that around. And yeah, in the space of 2 minutes, the name was there. And probably one of those things that we look back and go, if we were to ever try and, have that little run of figuring something out that quickly, in 10 minutes or so, you'd never in a million years. It was, and even the business as a whole, like it's kind of one of those things where it found you when you weren't necessarily looking for it at the same time.
Maybe you're doing yourself a disservice. Maybe you've been a bit modest. It sounds like you were digging around for a while trying to find something.
If you want to manifest it, or it was out in the universe that we were trying to figure something out.
Either that, you're the ultimate opportunist, because you saw. Look, for me, sometimes people are really sharp, and they're always on the lookout. And as soon as you got presented the idea by your fiance and her friend, you're all over it, and you're texting James in Vietnam, and he was out there testing it out. The next thing, in 6 weeks, you're up and running.
Yeah,
there's an instinct there that's very sharp, but there's you showed the ability to execute on something you thought was a good idea. In other words, you had a fucking crack.
Yes.
And if you had a thought too much about it, you may never have come up with a name. Sometimes people sit there for days and weeks and fuck around with the name. The name is the name. It's worked perfectly. It's just a great concept. I reckon it's fantastic. I really think it's great.
I always remember one of your podcasts that you interviewed Michael Klim.
Yeah.
And it was his product, the skincare product, and it was called Milk because Klim was backwards. And I always remember just you blatantly saying to him, I think, mate, it's just too confusing. Like you get milk every single day.
Yeah.
And from there, and that was well before Pinot, you always think of something that isn't too, it's smart without being too smart at the same time.
Don't even think it. The Wizard business, Wizard Home Loans, it's the same thing. I didn't overthink it too much, but I just like the name Wizard.
Yeah.
It's just a fucking name. And I thought, well, no one would ever call, no lender would ever call themselves Wizard in those days. Pinot Picasso is memorable. It's funny, Clemmy's a good bloke and all that sort of stuff, but if you asked me today what was the name of his product, I wouldn't remember. Yeah. Even though it was his name spelled backwards. But I'll remember Pinot and Picasso. They're just, because I got an image straight in my head.
Yeah.
Run out of time. What are you guys going to ask me anything?
Being from a franchising background, and you've seen it all, you've lived it all, what's advice that you would give to us in regards to expanding into international markets?
Well, my expansion of my Wizard business, I went into India and to Russia and to Mexico. Just be careful that you understand the culture really well, that you understand the payments, how people get paid for labor, and then you obviously got to understand your ultimate audience being your consumer as well. So it's a bit of research, I guess, is probably the most important thing. And I think from our point of view too, what was really good from our point of view, it worked really well, was that we had a big partner there. So I think just going there on your own might be difficult. We had a partner in India. It was GE India, which whilst it was General Electric globally, it was all run by Indians.
Yeah, okay.
And they knew everyone. They knew all the laws. They knew, what the government expected. They knew which license you had to get. They get things done quickly. I mean, like in India, it's the ultimate bureaucracy. I mean, Gandhi did one thing that was really good. He built the ultimate bureaucracy, which basically means that everyone's got a job. Like even if you're just opening the door, you're going to get a job, at least enough to buy some food for your family. It might not be much money, but it's enough to. And that's sort of like communism, in a sense. It still exists in India, through the Gandhi sort of process. And I had no fucking idea what that was all about. But my local people, my local partner who was indented into India for 100 years, he'd been there for 100 years, made a big difference to me. They fast-tracked me. I wouldn't have been able to do it on my own no matter what. As long as my ass pointed at the ground, I was never going to get it done. Within 18 months, we had 58 branches across India.
That's unbelievable.
That's so quick, but that's because I had a local partner who knew all the stuff that's going on, made sure I didn't trip over anything. And then when I wanted to do my research, I just talked to them and they took me through the process. Taking a brand and a system to a country, which was totally different to Australia, was the most exciting thing I've ever done. And being in a country where there was 1.6 billion people, or if you go to America, it's around 80 million people, like the speed at which freneticism, the speed at which you have to operate is mental. Here we got so much time. You said earlier, Aaron, like we're lucky, everything's good, opportunities here. You get in those places, mate, you get pushed into a lane that's really fast, and fucking people are buzzing by you. You got to get on your bike, and you're gonna have to start getting them legs going, James. So you're gonna have to go hard and fast, dude. But good luck to you. And it was really good talking to you. It's so good.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you,
guys.
Really appreciate it.